GNASS. Two degenerates, both sides of the border. John Santina, Alex Lacasse. The Great North American Sports Show.
Welcome in to a very special edition of GNASS, and more on that later. But it's a lovely spring day here in the heart of the Shire Seacoast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Lacasse, joined as always by my close friend and associate north of the border. That would be one John Santina. John, you smell that?
Oh, I smell it coming, man. I smell it because if you can't tell, man, I'm warming up just like the weather because I'm so excited already, man.
Yes, that's right. It's baseball season.
That is right, my friend. We are back on the diamond because baseball is back and in full force. We actually got a little bit of a treat early if you're a big diehard baseball fan because we had the World Baseball Classic. Alex, you catch any of the international games at foot?
I watched like maybe a couple innings of the USA Japan game, but that was about it.
I thought it was funny that both teams with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani separately were like gangster, but when you put the two of them together, it's like the team just fucking blows.
Yep.
But we will dive into that a little bit on this show here as Alex got into it. We have the MLB season coming up for you. So this is the Degenerate's Guide to the 2023 MLB season. Now, Alex, before we dive into each and every team and our predictions for them, we have one also special thing for you on each team. Alex, what are your big thoughts this year? Like anything entering the season, like big storylines you're following?
Sure. And so the big one, obviously, is the new rules in baseball. We have the pitch clock finally. The average game length in spring training was hovering around with 2.5 hours or maybe a little more than that, which coming off of, I think last year, the average time length for a baseball game was still over 3 hours long. So this is really, really going to change how, I mean, it goes without saying how the game is played. And now these pitchers, it's going to be a little bit more aerobic. We're going to find out who's in shape really quickly. If these pitchers are taking balls because they can't get their act together. And and then these batters start taking strikes. We'll see how quickly the sport adjusts to this because, these are baseball players. They've been babied most of their professional lives, and we'll see how tight MLB enforces these rules. I'm still not convinced that they're going to do it.
We've already seen some instances like in spring training though with some of the pitchers and catchers like trying to get adjusted. Like there's already some talk between like I know I've just been watching some of the Blue Jays games, like Alejandro Kirk and Alek Manoah actually like have been having some problems ahead of the home opener, like just in terms of the different rules for timeouts and adjusting to the pitch clock. So to your point, Alex, like I think it's going to be a big adjustment for a lot of guys, not just like the shape aspect of it playing at a higher tempo, but just the whole concept of like your rhythm's different, like how you're calling time with the ump is different, like your whole pacing in the game is different. And to your point, yes, they're babies, they're also humans. So there's good because of the rule changes. You as a human have that instinct from the previous rules. So we're going to see a lot more potential errors, balks, things like that, that advance some runners, potentially get some guys in more scoring positions.
Right. And this just popped into my head, and I don't know why I haven't thought of this yet, because there's that limit on throwing over to try to pick off a runner. Say they throw over twice on you. Why wouldn't you then just take
just fucking go.
Take a 15-foot lead? And if they can't throw over, and now the bases are slightly bigger, that's going to cut down a couple inches. So it almost seems a little gimmicky, and because picking off. I mean, that's part of the strategy. So I don't know if they should have put limits on that. So we'll see how it all plays out.
I get it. I get it. I think the way to counteract it, though, to your point, is like when you see guys doing things like, say, standing halfway down the base path, then it's time to put in another rule change to adjust. But I agree with you completely, dude. Like, if you throw
like twice, then at that point, is the catcher limited? How often they can throw snap throws down? Like, I don't think they've.
I don't believe the catcher's limited for snap throws. I think it's just the pitcher to pickoffs, but don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure on the full rule. But Alex, another quick rule change too that I wanted to touch on. How about the shifts, man?
Right. And if Major League Baseball just had listened to me, I think we would have had a nice, healthy middle ground with the shift and the nerds, and we could have everybody could have had things a little less chaotic if we had just listened to me. But we're neither here nor there. Baseball didn't.
To quote Archer, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, exactly. It just make these stupid freaking managers get off their ass, make a real in-game decision. You can employ the shift on one batter per inning. That seems very simple. That like a very
Alex,
simple compromise.
I agree, and I think that is the best compromise. But you are forgetting a commissioner's job, Alex, which is to protect the managers from themselves. That is it. So you gotta,
yeah, and therein maybe lied the problem. But let me back up. I think this is obviously going to. You're not going to see as many, huge middle infielders anymore. It's certainly coming through the system now that you're going to need athletic guys to run into the hole, but on both sides of second base. But that's not going to stop teams like the Red Sox. God bless them for moving. If it's still a really pull happy lefty, they might even take their guy at a left field and put him into short right field to try to cut down that base hit and spread out the remaining outfielders a little bit. So I just think the sport has been so analytically driven. In the three true outcomes for so long, it's going to take these players a little bit of time to unlearn some of these bad habits, the launch angle and, just, retraining themselves just to get the bat on the ball and get the thing in play. So I still think that there's going to be some lag in teams, fully mastering these new rule changes and finding the best way to play within them.
They are professionals though, so let's try to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt, because I'd like to think when they were learning this game, like their high school coach wasn't like, yo, this guy's a pull hitter, so go line up in the hole. And it's like, so I'd like to think that they'd be able to adjust, but kind of like my point with Manoah and Kirk, like I brought up a little bit earlier with them having the issues timing wise in terms of calling timeouts. Like there's going to be errors and it's going to cost some teams some games. And I'm going to tell you, man, the drama is going to be interesting to watch early on in the season. I'll tell you that much.
Right. And so one last thing, John, but I think before we dive in and break down these teams and the divisions, is there's going to be a completely different MLB schedule. We're taking away, I believe it's 6 or 7 division games that are getting spread throughout, the rest of the league. And I'm not sure exactly the permutation of how they decided to allocate those other games. But you have to imagine it's at least one more series with the rest of the teams in the league. So we were talking before we started recording, and if I'm a team like the Blue Jays, I got my Blue Jays hat on, John. If I'm a team like the Blue Jays, I'm pissed because I used to get to play, for most of this century, the Red Sox got to play 19 games against lowly Baltimore, sometimes lowly Tampa Bay, and
it was like mostly lowly Tampa Bay until like 2008.
By and large, mediocre Toronto. You can be beat up on them 19 times a year. And then now, the Blue Jays go 16-3 against the Red Sox last year. And now I lose 7 of those games that were probably going to be easy wins this season.
I do think there is something to be said though, Alex, to your point about like 3 true outcomes in terms of when the batter comes up to the ball, or excuse me, the box. One thing that's happened a lot of the time with teams is they fall into one of 2 categories. They're either trying to win or they're trying to tank. And I think that the MLB, and this may not be the best step towards that, is trying to encourage all the teams to be competitive. Because you got to admit, as fans, we all like it when teams are spending money, teams are trying to win. And this is trying to improve that concept of parity within the game. So I'll give them credit. I think the only thing you really have to do, though, is 1 series against every team in the league. And I think you should be able to fit that in with 162 games. That's my only thing. And I think that in every sport, everybody needs to play everybody once. It doesn't have to be more than that. Just everybody should do it once in the regular season. But that's my personal view on it, Alex. I mean, how are you feeling? Are you feeling good that the Red Sox don't have to see the Yankees 19 times?
Well, the Yankees are the one team they played decent against last season in the division. So I like the idea of division play in that, you have this marathon that is the baseball season. If you're giving these 3 automatic bids to the playoffs, now with it made more sense when there was only 2, at most 2 wild card teams, but nonetheless, now you're kind of penalizing one division winner, even though they probably played worse competition within their division. So it does balance itself out. I think the balanced schedule, or the more balanced schedule, you get to see other teams. And, there was a time when, for instance, the Blue Jays and Tigers were rivals, but now they're they're very close geographically, but they only play
Shout out Jack Morris.
Yeah. They only play each other once a year, home and away. And so now maybe a little more familiarity can kind of breed a little more contempt for like these interleague rivalries that aren't necessarily teams in your division. So I kind of like that aspect of it. But I also like the idea of you have to beat the teams in your division if you want to be on top of them. And I also see your point, John, that you're a team, you're the Cardinals in the NL Central. 2.5 of those teams are unserious about competing right now, and there's no signs that they're going to be anywhere close to competing, in the next, 2 or 3 presidential administrations.
But Alex, like I said, just once. That's it. You just need to see everyone like once, just so you know what's out there, and then you're good to go. But Alex, I think it's time we dive right into the actual preview itself. So we are actually going to try to dive into every single team. But because we are degenerates, when we touch on every single team, and keep in mind, we may not have a lot to say because, as Alex just pointed out, some people aren't trying to win, man. So there's not a whole lot of stories going on with your team.
Yeah. But eat your heart out, fans in Oakland.
Right. But Alex and I are degenerates. So we are going to try to make at least one bet that you can cash on every single team. But I need to be clear about something with this bet. We're not going to give you odds because not all these bets, as you're going to see, are going to be like in the traditional sense. Like some of them might be things like a player's going to make a trade demand, or a team may not do this or do that. So some of them might be jokes. Some of them may not be as serious in terms of the betting. Some of them will be, though. So we hope you guys enjoy, and we hope you guys listen in. Alex, let's dive right into it with the NL East. I mean, where you want to start with the NL East, my friend?
Right. So there's the haves and the have-nots, and I think that's kind of the theme of this division here. The Steve Cohen and the Mets dumped a boatload of money for Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. They lose their closer, in a not quite Kendry Morales injury, but kind of somewhat close to that. Unfortunately,
beautiful celebration, but I'm sorry for the dude.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like Kendry Morales is like kind of like jumping up and down, and then the home run mosh pit, and the injury for the Mets closer there, that wasn't as bad as when Kendry completely altered the trajectory of Kendry Morales' career. All right, neither here nor there.
Also, it's Edwin Diaz, by the way.
Yes, yeah. So the Mets are without their closer. It's a cop out here, but I think whoever is the healthiest team in this division wins. And because you're going to have these 3 teams, they're playing less against each other head to head. So that kind of flattens out, these advantages that these teams can develop against playing your division rivals, 19 times, as opposed to 12 times. So I think that this is kind of where that dynamic of you're not playing as much within your division could factor in. And so who plays the best against the rest of the league? And for me, I like the Braves. I think the Braves are the most balanced team here. When you look at their pitching staff, led by Soroka, Michael Harris might be a blossoming MVP candidate someday. You already have Ronald Acuna Jr., who's, a well-established superstar. So I just like the Braves balance on their roster kind of top to bottom. And so right now, I think they're my pick to win this division.
Very nice, my friend. So I have the Braves winning this division as well. I think the Braves have the most talent. To your point, this is going to be a close battle between the top three, and then the two have-nots being the Nats, the Nationals, and the Marlins. But the Braves are just a great team. I also love Spencer Strider, who I believe was the runner-up last year for the Rookie of the Year. He's going to be fully unleashed, like fully no limitations on his innings. So we'll see him as well joining the top of that rotation. They are just a very talented team, and I fully expect them to come full force. Like Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson. Like, I think this team, like to your point, Alex, is primed to win this division. And my bet to Alex, do you have a bet to cash in for the Atlanta Braves?
I mean, it would probably just be them to win the division, and probably right now that's good, a decent number because I feel like baseball views this as a toss up between those three teams.
Mine is that despite the amount of wins they have, people will probably think their logo is still kind of racist. Alex, let's move on to the New York Mets. So they brought in Justin Verlander to pitch alongside Max Scherzer. He is the Jacob DeGrom replacement. Where do you see the Mets finishing in the whole landscape of this division?
So, Verlander, he's pitched well into his late 30s. There's no reason to suggest that he can't pitch on the other side of 40 and be just as effective.
Especially altering his game to be more of a control pitcher, too.
Right. And I'm not there with the Mets yet. They're just still the Mets. And in times when they've been cheap penny pinchers, when the Wilpons were stuck up in the Bernie Madoff affair, or now with Steve Cohen running this franchise. There's just something here in that they're kind of cursed, and for lack of a better term, just how the Padres went in there and just kind of smacked them around in the playoffs. It's just not a good sign. And when you talk about the other teams in the National League that, could threaten them, and then the way that they choked down the stretch, I mean, we're completely leaving out
bad.
Completely forgot about that. Should have led with that.
I think that's also to a degree why they didn't want to break the bank for DeGrom and why they went so heavily in for Verlander, who's like a multi-time World Series champion, because they saw how they faltered down the stretch and they're like, we can't fucking let this happen again. But Alex, I'm telling you, man, they're cursed. And that's even my bet for this team, man. My bet for this team is that they will not win this division under any circumstances, because that is what this team does.
Yeah, and so for me, I like Scherzer to have a better ERA than Verlander, because Scherzer right now, I think, is that he is where Verlander was when Verlander got to the Astros. And Verlander, maybe he takes a slight step back. I mean, he still probably has an ERA in the threes, but, is it, probably closer to 3.5 than 3.10.
That's still like a respectable all-star, though.
Of course. But I think, Scherzer probably, looking like sub 3, as he typically is. And so, John, that brings us to the defending National League champion Phillies. Do we see them as third, or can they eke out the Mets here?
For me, I think they eke out the Mets. I think they finish in second place. I love the addition of Trey Turner. I still don't think they're going to have enough firepower, like I was saying, to overtake the Braves, but I love the Phillies.
Turner, it will be a difference maker in this offense, but the shortstop was really the gaping hole for them in that lineup. Aaron Nola, and we talked about it going into the playoffs. Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler really pitched like big game pitchers, and kind of really established themselves as frontline starters after kind of being close for most of their careers. Aaron Nola was kind of forgotten about for a little while when the Phillies struggled. So good to see them get back on track. I like Aaron Nola to lead the league in innings pitched.
Ooh, I like that one too.
I think he's a workhorse.
I think both him and Zach Wheeler are absolute beauties. They're workhorses, eat tons of innings. My bet, though, is that Trey Turner will be the MVP candidate from this team, despite Bryce Harper turning in a full healthy season. And we know when Bryce Harper turns in his healthy seasons, he's basically a lock for an MVP candidate. But I think Turner's going to turn in a better season batting in front of Bryce Harper. Alex, there's only two teams left in this division, but let's dive into them together because let's be real, neither of them is really trying to win.
Right. And I guess starting with the Nationals, if you're looking at this objectively, I think the Nats at least have a little more going for them because they got that haul of prospects for Juan Soto. What this the shortstop they got? I think he's projected to be an everyday guy. CJ, or I forget his last name. CJ Chatham. I don't know. Either way, but the centerpiece of that trade was Mackenzie Gore, who was a Padres starter last season, and he could be, you're looking at maybe a future ace of a staff at some point, and why not book him down for a rookie of the year.
Ooh, I like that bet. I like that bet. And there's also going to be a lot of chances with the Nationals because they're not trying to be a good team. My bet for them is actually that they finish with less wins than the year before, and that would be in 2022, where they finished in fifth of the division. Because I think, to your point, Alex, like Mackenzie Gore, they feel that, and a few of these other young players, they feel like they're starting to build a core, but they need just to continue adding to this core, continue adding lots of young pieces. So I think they're actually going to be worse than last season. And Alex will quickly dive into the Marlins. So that leaves the Marlins, I think, because the Nats finish in fifth, Marlins finish in fourth. I don't think the Marlins are going to try to win. And to go on that theme, my bet for the Marlins is that they find a way, as they always do, to trade Sandy Alcantara. Alex, what about yours?
I would say I don't think he's going to get moved during the season. Usually, other than Soto, it's really rare to see big, and maybe we have a new norm in baseball, but I think that remains to be seen. But typically, you don't see huge names move at the deadline.
I know, not at the deadline, but still.
So, or traded in season, but that would be classic Marlins, and it should be noted. Yeah, Jose Fernandez didn't play long enough for them to trade him for cents on the dollar. So now they'll have to make up for that with Sandy Alcantara.
Mic drop on that one, buddy. All right, let's move on to the NL Central. Alex, who do you have winning the NL Central division?
I mean, there's really only one team that we're looking at, and that's the Cardinals, and I would pick them to win more than 100 games. I'm not sure what their over under for season win total is. My hell, it might even be over 100 games. Just by virtue of, yes, they're playing fewer games in the division, but the games that they're going to be playing in the division are against 2.5 of the worst teams in baseball. I think the Cubs could kind of go either way this year. They have a few, names on that roster. You bring in Dansby Swanson, Seiya Suzuki showed that he was an everyday player last year. Maybe you salvage something with Cody Bellinger, but being compared against the Pirates and the Reds, let's not plan the parade for the Cubs just yet.
I completely agree. I think the Cards too. They're going to be one of the most fascinating teams in baseball. This might be the best lineup that they've had without, like, period in their history without Albert Pujols in it, and it might even be the best one with him in it. Like just looking at it top to bottom, led by Paul Goldschmidt and Nathan Arenado. Like,
Nolan,
this is just one of the top lineups in baseball. They have everything top to bottom in terms of players in the field. They could use a pitcher or two, but to your point, Alex, like, a lot of the teams in the NL that they're going to be playing in these cross divisional games and even interdivision, like against the Reds, and you mentioned like the Reds and specifically the Cubs, but you look at like the Pirates too. Like, the Pirates aren't really going to pose a threat to them at all.
Oh, yeah.
And I see this team winning well over 100 games. I see this team being the favorites easily in this division, and also potentially being, in my opinion, they should be the favorites or one of the favorites to win the NL, along with the Dodgers and Padres. And my bet for them, Alex, I know that you went the way with winning 100 games. My bet, and you can take it to the bank, a Cardinals player will take home the NL MVP at season's end. That is my guess, much like Paul Goldschmidt did last year. Now,
so yeah, we're looking at Goldschmidt or Arenado.
It's got to be one of the two of them. I mean, you just look at what they're building around them. It's just crazy. And Alex, we talked about though the rest of the teams in the division, the Reds, the Cubs, the Pirates, and we didn't mention the Brewers, but let's just focus on the Reds, the Cubs, and the Pirates right now. Who do you have with the least amount of wins between those three teams?
That would be the Cincinnati Reds. John, there are two players on the Cincinnati Reds roster making more than $6 million. One of them is Joey Votto, and the team has already given clearance to seek a trade to the Blue Jays if he wants to, go out and try to have his agent put that together. I don't know what the hell the Blue Jays would give up for him.
Like nothing.
Yeah. And
they already
the other
have
player
two first
is
basemen.
Will Myers. But John, do you know who the third highest paid player on the Cincinnati Reds is?
Ooh. I was gonna say Eugenio Suarez, but I know they traded him.
Well, John, the Reds, a lot of these teams, we make fun of the Mets for Bobby Bonilla Day, but a lot of these teams defer money. And this year in 2023, the Cincinnati Reds' third highest paid baseball player will be Ken Griffey Jr.,
Fuck off. No way.
who is in his 50s
no fucking way.
and hasn't played for that team since, like 2010.
He's been on like multiple other teams since his Red stint.
Yes.
Before his retirement. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yep. And so I think the Reds might be the biggest joke in Major League Baseball. God. And I would take them under their wins. This is an organization that does not give a flying F about winning remotely at all, Alex, and they're just cashing that sweet revenue sharing check.
Alex, I know the answer to this question because it's the same year as me, but for our listeners, what year did you graduate high school?
2010. That
was more recent than the last time Ken Griffey Jr. suited up for the Cincinnati Reds.
Says everything you need to know about that the crap bag franchise.
Oh my God, that is bad.
Well, John, do you have any thoughts on the Cubs and Pirates?
The Cubs and Pirates. Well, when it comes to the Pirates, we'll stop on them really quickly. I love watching highlights of O'Neal Cruz. I just want to mention that really quickly because it's fun watching a 6'7" guy roam around the infield. Like, kind of, he looks so awkward, but he's awesome.
Yeah, it's like Karl Malone playing shortstop.
Exactly, but he's awesome at stuff. But other than that, I think the only and this is my bet for the Pirates, actually, the only feel-good story about the Pirates will be Andrew McCutcheon and O'Neal Cruz. I think other than that, the silver lining is just simply you're going to finish above the Reds, which is not very hard.
No, not very hard at all. Like the Cincinnati Reds could be 62 Mets bad, and the Pirates might win like 68 games. But O'Neal Cruz definitely will be the Pirates all-star rep. Mark my words.
And that is the bet you can cash, folks. Alex, you mentioned the Cubs too. Let's stop in on them really quickly. Spending a lot of money on Dansby Swanson this offseason, as you mentioned, Seiya Suzuki. They're also hoping for a bit of a reclamation project with former NL MVP Cody Bellinger. How you see the Cubs doing this season, my man?
I just like the team that we think is going to finish in second, John. They're really third place by default, and that's because they did something in the off season and brought in, a real shortstop, unlike the Red Sox.
They basically signed someone to like silence their fans bitching, but it's like you didn't do enough to get second, but you're also just like you're good enough to be above fourth, but like not good enough to get second. So yeah, you're third by default. I can't stress this enough, Chicago Cubs fans. You, the front office, you should not be proud of this. Like, I get that the next group is getting ushered in. Do not be proud that you are third place in arguably baseball's worst division. Like, the Cardinals are the only team that is really doing anything.
I think, like, if the Cubs are around 500, I think that'd be a successful year for them.
That should not be hard for them to get around 500, but I think it'll be a struggle for them. I really do. I think they're going to have some pitching issues getting there, but
yeah, pitching's definitely the biggest question mark.
And for me too, like, and this is the bet that you can take to the bank with them. I think, man, Cody Bellinger's just got the yips. I don't think he's going to figure it out in Wrigley Field. And that's part of the reason why I think the Cubs are going to struggle, man. I think Dansby Swanson is a needle mover, but not to the extent that they need to make any good ground in the standings.
Right. And then so kind of like not to completely, I mean, we're gonna cross sports here, but when the Celtics gave Al Horford a max contract when he first hit free agency, it's like this is by definition an overpayment. And I think Dansby Swanson is going to be somewhat similar just based on his production and what he is as a player. And that just leaves the Brewers, John, and I think we're looking at a wild card team here. I don't know if they'll go much further than that. That's really been the upper. That's really been the glass ceiling that the Brewers haven't really broken through. But what else do we where else do we see the Brewers getting out of them this year?
It's honestly just such a shame because the Brewers have one of the best top end rotations in baseball, and like led by Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns. And man, like they just need any bit of hitting, like any bit besides William Contreras, their catcher, and they're not going to get it, man, not at all. And it's a shame, but because of that, second by default with me hoping that they have like some catastrophic issue, like the pitchers demanding trades, because that would really like make things interesting. But yeah, second by default, unfortunately. And again, can't stress this enough. They're going to have a Cy Young candidate again. And you're probably, as a baseball fan, you're not going to give two shits. That is all. Alex, how do you feel about the Brew Crew this season?
I mean, like I said, I think they're a wild card team. And I honestly... you can't really. I'm not familiar with their roster really at all. Well, Willie Adames is their shortstop. Not that he's remotely close to their centerpiece.
They got Rowdy Tellez, yo.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's there. He's doing his Prince Fielder impression over there. Yeah, I think Craig Counsell's a good manager, and I think he squeezes like every last bit of talent that he can off his roster. So if I think they could give the Cardinals a run for their money, but it'll be one of those things where maybe the Cardinals run away like the last 2-3 weeks of the season just because they're that much better.
I think this is a team that finishes with like high 80s, low 90s in wins, and like they're fighting with the Mets for that last wild card spot. That's where I think the Brewers ultimately end up. Alex, let's take a quick break and then we'll jump into our final NL division. That would be the NL West.
And we're back with a baseball preview on GNASS. John, we left off with the NL West. Who we have winning?
Ooh, so this was a tough one for me. It was obviously between the Dodgers and the Padres. The two teams spending the most money in this division. The Padres making all the trades, especially last season with Juan Soto. And this offseason, Alex, I'm really sorry they signed Xander Bogaerts.
What they did?
For me though, the Padres win this division. I think the Padres have top to bottom one of the best lineups in all of baseball. They do have pitching depth, like led by Blake Snell and Yu Darvish. Like this is a team that's going for it every single year, obviously. And I just have a feeling that if anyone else happens to become available, they're going to end up trading for them.
Yeah, why not? Because they've traded for everybody these last couple of years. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement here. I really like the Padres to win this division, and by bringing in a guy like Xander Bogaerts, I look at the Padres as they were a team with a lot of talent, and then bringing in Xander Bogaerts, he kind of makes them a team in terms of clubhouse leadership. He's won 2 World Series, and having that pedigree, a guy who's on that roster that's been there, done that. That's what the Padres were missing. And, they went out and they overpaid for it by God, like at least $80 million. But if you're the San Diego Padres and you come home with a World Series this year, then yeah, that's worth it for them.
That's all worth it. Writes it all off, man. And let's quickly jump on the team that I think we both debated with the Padres as being in contention for this division, the LA Dodgers. Alex, the Dodgers really interesting offseason, only bringing in JD Martinez and Noah Syndergaard in terms of big name additions. How are you feeling about the Dodgers going in this year?
Yeah, I mean, they've won, Jesus, like 11, 12 division championships in a row. They got to be pushing they got to be pushing the Braves at some point, but I see them as taking a slight step back this year. And when you're looking at where that roster was in 2020 and you thought, oh my God, the Dodgers, they're going to be bringing all these young guys through and this could just keep going and they're going to keep rolling this forward. You know, Gavin Lux was viewed as the most sure bet in minor league baseball when he was a prospect, and he hasn't. I mean, he's going to be out this season. He has, that catastrophic injury, but it just seems like their young talent was a little bit oversold. I'm not saying they're not going to be productive Major League Baseball players, but the way that at least, from the outside, it seemed like the way that the Dodgers system was talked about, and they can produce pitchers as with the best of them, but at least their position players, they haven't. I don't see them becoming the elite caliber players on a team that's competing for a championship year in year out. I just don't.
I agree too, and I think they're going to take a slight step back. I still think, just with all the talent that they have, like Mookie Betts, all these other guys, like they are still going to be one of the very best teams in the NL, and I think they finished second because of that. But yeah, it's just even like when you look at like a guy like Tony Gonsolin or Julio Urias, like it just doesn't feel the same as when the Dodgers were that powerhouse team. I do like Syndergaard and JD Martinez adding depth to this team, but I really think they're going to miss Trey Turner more than they think. And we're already seeing like how much they miss Trey Turner, like moving Mookie Betts into the infield. So I like, to your point.
Yeah,
like,
that seems like a desperate move.
Yeah. And to your point, like I really do think that, first off, brilliant for fantasy, but yeah, desperate on the field move. And it really feels like they're going to take a step back this year, despite still being one of the top teams in baseball. Alex, there's 3 more teams in this division. Which one do you think has the best record remaining of the 3?
So I think we disagree here, but I'm still going to take the Giants, even though there might be some residual hangover from swinging and missing on Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa in the offseason. Because last season you saw the Giants and they're like, you looked at them and you said there is an Aaron Judge or Carlos Correa sized hole in this lineup. Like there's a lot of small G good players, but they need a cornerstone of the lineup.
Exactly.
And Michael Conforto isn't that player after missing a year of baseball. So I would take their win total under. But I think it's going to be kind of the Padres and Dodgers, and then I think the Giants and Diamondbacks are going to be close. They'll probably be running neck and neck, and then we're talking about the Rockies as a distant 5th.
So I actually have the Giants finishing 4th. To your point, we do disagree on this one. I have the Diamondbacks finishing 3rd, but I'll dive into the Giants real quick. Yeah, I don't like the vibes after striking out on both Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa, especially after agreeing to a contract with Correa, bringing him in, and then having all those issues with the physical pop up. It's just like there's something about that that's it doesn't feel right. Michael Conforto feels like a very Giant signing coming off of a year missed with a shoulder injury, but to your point, he's not a cornerstone of a lineup. And the bet that I like, you can take this one to the bank, I think, with the Giants this year. Despite the fact that Conforto can opt out, I think coming off of a shoulder injury, he's going to have less than 20 home runs this year. He's going to opt into that contract.
Well, I mean, playing in that ballpark too.
Exactly. Like he's playing in one of the biggest ballparks. Like to me, his contract seems like he was gambling on either Correa or Aaron Judge being directly behind him in the lineup.
Yes.
Like that, because it's a 2-year deal with an opt-out after 1 year. He goes to like one of the biggest parks in baseball, coming off of a year where he missed because of a serious shoulder injury. Like, and he's a career 250 hitter too, despite being a fantastic player. So it's like, to me, this move doesn't make a lot of sense for him. And for the Giants, it feels like, yeah, like you said it yourself, like they had that cornerstone hole. They still have that cornerstone hole. So for me, I actually have them dropping a spot and finishing in 4th place. And the reason for that is the Arizona Diamondbacks, my friend. I think the Diamondbacks made a great baseball trade with the Blue Jays this year. Both teams getting better, getting what they needed as part of this deal. I think the D-backs are building something here, especially led by Zach Gallen, who I think is going to be a fantastic player this year. And I think that the Diamondbacks finished 3rd in this division. I think they're a team that's slowly building. They're going to start to rise, and they're aiming to hit that kind of peak right when the Padres and the Dodgers are slowly starting to age out of their windows. Obviously, though, with the resources those teams have, the windows
Or
can be
or the
extended.
Padres owner gets fed, or the Padres don't get it done. They don't win a World Series, and the Padres owner's like, "Well, why the hell am I paying all this money? Like, no, let's time to shed payroll. Let's go back to actually being the
Exactly.
Padres."
And that's my point. Is like at some point your cycle ends, and the D-backs are kind of just projecting that window really, really well. And I love what they're doing here. I love that Gabriel Moreno addition, despite the fact that it cost the Dalton Varsho. And like I said, I think this is a great team.
The Diamondbacks have never, if you think about it, though, the Diamondbacks have never really built their team.
No.
They
even when they won a World Series, they were like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was all
piecemeal-
veterans. Yeah. The 98 Diamondbacks were an expansion team. They unload, anything not nailed down within the next 2 years. They win, they go to the playoffs, I think in 1999, as in only their second year. Win the World Series in 01. Probably the average age on that roster had to have been like 33, 34 years old.
It was old, and they had one bat, and they were basically a 3-player team.
Yes. Yeah. Luis Gonzalez found the youth that year.
Whatever you say.
Yeah. 20 home run guy hits 50 something home runs. Jesus.
And he's in the same locker room as Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson.
Yeah, Randy Johnson. We'll leave Randy Johnson alone. The guy was he was a physical specimen. But yeah, after that, after that team, I think they went back to the playoffs in 02. But after that, the residual Diamondbacks from there, they're talking like, oh, Lyle Overbay, that's going to be that's your franchise right there. And it just feels like, I mean, then they're just out in the wilderness for so long. They bring Goldschmidt is, a legit superstar, but they get nothing else. And so now, to your point, maybe they're finally having, this build that they've never actually really done before.
Why build when you can just sign? But yeah, for me, they're a third place team in this division, Alex. But one thing you can take to the bank this year, they are playing the Jays in a series starting on July 14th. In classic Toronto fashion, I will bet you Gabriel Moreno hits a home run in one of those 3 games, because that is what happens against Toronto. Former players kill it. Alex, one quick thing. Let's do a quick little note on the Rockies, because we both agree that they will be last place in this division. Alex, how you feeling about the Chris Bryant-led Colorado Rockies?
They're a different kind of pathetic than the Cincinnati Reds. It's not because they don't try. It's just that everything they try never effing works ever. And except for in 2007, they went on this most ridiculous run. I think they had to win 17 of 18 games just to get into the postseason, and then they swept their way through it. And then had to sit around for almost 2 weeks while the Red Sox came back against the 2007 Indians. Shout out to Fausto Carmona. But it's this team spends money sometimes. They spent money through the years. They also pissed off their once-in-a-generation third baseman, literally their franchise's best player they've ever had. And so this team will just never make sense to me. And I just wonder if it's just physically impossible to succeed as a pitcher in Colorado.
That's a fair assumption at this point.
It's just we've never seen anyone be successful.
And it could just be the fact that they never have or want to spend the money on the pitching, nor have they really appeared I think their most hyped prospect probably that I can remember is John Gray, which is a little bit disappointing.
Jeff Francis.
Yeah, maybe Jeff Francis. But even I love Jeff Francis. I'm a Canadian too, but even me as someone who loves Canadian baseball, I'm dude, that's not a high bar. And I think that they don't put enough of a premium on pitching, but I agree. This team is just a disaster. From top to bottom, they never seem to get it right. I don't even know.
They're the NL. They're the NL Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Exactly. Exactly that. It's just they basically just they fire the money cannon at the sun, watch it eviscerate, and then their team ends up just below 500 every year. And to your point about pitching, they need to get that sorted out before they can make any steps forward. They need to stop signing these aging vets like CJ Cron and Chris Bryant. Like these guys are not going to move the needle for you. Like Randall
I think pitchers don't want to sign there. I think that's also a problem.
Well, exactly. And if that's the case, then you have to put a higher prime on developing them and finding them in the draft. And I just don't think the Rockies do that. And to that point, man, the only positive outlining for the season is I think they will finish ahead of the Reds. Now, the Reds are not in their division, but that means that the Rockies will not be last in the NL, Alex.
Hey, play for that draft pick and maybe find that pitcher. Yeah, so under Rocky season win total, especially given how much better teams in their division got this year. Hell, maybe Xander Bogaerts playing more, playing 7-8 games or 6-7 games in Colorado this year.
Yeah, maybe he gets like 35 home runs.
Maybe he'll be a 30 home run guy after all. Like that eluded him here in Boston, except for 1 year. All right, John, let's we're going from the senior circuit to the American League. We just like Feifel went west, we went east to west in the National League. We'll start out west and come back across this great continent for the American League. Where are we starting in the AL West?
Ooh, in the AL West, let's go with. I think let's start with the obvious one. We both think the Astros are probably going to win this division.
Well, and so before we dive in there, I'll say that I really like the Mariners have always been, they've been on my radar for a couple of years now.
Okay, we'll start there.
They've been getting better and better and better. And I really like the Teoscar Hernandez trade. We touched on that a little bit earlier. I
didn't like it, by the way, because I'm a Blue Jays fan.
Yeah. Teoscar Hernandez, that's a good, steady bat that Seattle was missing. They trade for Castillo last year, sign him to the extension. I was almost going to pick the Mariners here. And then I saw the photo of Jeremy Pena come into spring training, and his bicep is bigger than my neck.
His bicep is like if Alex and I put our heads next to each other, like that's how fucking big his biceps are right now.
I was like, that was a wake-up call. And I was like, all right, the World Series MVP isn't playing around. And so, yes, I got the Astros winning the AL West again.
Someone should check his fucking trainer's resume for biogenesis, man. Like, seriously. Dude,
yeah.
That guy's been eating his fucking Wheaties. But yeah, to that point, I like the Mariners. But yeah, the Astros, I have a hard time picking against them despite the loss of Justin Verlander for two reasons. One, Jose Abreu. The fuck, man? Like, why do they keep getting good players? And then two, I fully expect, like, the Astros are the Sith. Like, they are the Empire. Like, they're the villain, right? The villain always gets someone, and I fully expect them to get a Justin Verlander replacement mid-season. Even if it's someone that we don't expect, I expect them to make this trade, get someone, make us hate them even more.
And they may not even need to. And because I think one of these young starters, whether it's Pena, the lefty, I'm totally spacing out on his name.
Framber Valdez or the other
Framber Valdez. I think one of them, they could win the Cy Young. They are really good pitchers. And
Framber
I think
Valdez
to your point,
nasty.
I think that's how the Astros are rolling this thing forward. They're not having to spend and invest big on their starting pitching anymore. They have these, 3 young starters who are all studs. And I think maybe you're looking at one of them as a Cy Young award winner this year. And, if Jeremy Pena is going to be the second coming of Alex Rodriguez in more ways than one, watch out. And the Mariners, like, as good as much as their lineup has improved, they're not there yet.
No, I 100% agree. And yeah, the Astros are just too deep. But Alex, let's quickly dive into the Mariners. So we have them finishing second, have them with Teoscar. Anything other to jump on the Mariners before we move on? Because I have one.
I like them to be the best wild card team.
Ooh,
I think the teams in the East, and some people think the Red Sox might be sneaky good, and by that not have a losing record. Good luck with that. I'm not saying that, but you got Tampa, You got Toronto, you got New York, even Baltimore they were competitive last year. They were feisty. So I think the East teams will still beat each other up a little bit. Versus the Mariners get to play the Astros, A's, and Rangers when they play, not the Astros, who they did play tough, at least in the regular season, in their division.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like it's just this is a very solid team, top to bottom. The Mariners, I think they definitely are locked for the playoffs, and I actually think J Rod takes home the MVP this year. I think they're building around him. I think having Teoscar behind him puts a big bat that can constantly hit, put him in good
I'd like to see Seattle with one, like, not elite, but like borderline all-star left-handed bat in that lineup. I think that would make them really potent.
Yeah, that would really put it over the top. But I think because they don't have that yet, I think that's actually why I have J Rod winning the MVP. But that's my only other note on this team. Shout out to J Rod's girlfriend, by the way, Jordan Heitema, Canadian national team striker. So just want to shout that one out. But Alex, we have I think we both have the A's finishing dead last in this division. Who do you have finishing third between the Rangers and the Angels?
We might diverge again here. I kind of like the Rangers.
Ooh.
I don't love the Rangers to finish third.
I can't stress
Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout aside, I think the Angels are a bad baseball team.
They're bad. It's this weird equation where it's Shohei Ohtani separate, good baseball team. Mike Trout separate, good baseball team. Shohei Ohtani plus Mike Trout, bad baseball team.
Mike Trout, not even. But I think with the Rangers, they've brought in some guys. You bring in Jacob deGrom. That's a big signing. You brought in Nathan Eovaldi, who's been a really steady starter for the Red Sox these last couple of years. And, I never thought of Nathan Eovaldi, being like, this workhorse who, he used to always be hurt. But now he's become a really reliable, second-ish, maybe like you can get away if you're a bad team like the Rangers are. You can get away with Eovaldi as your second starter, third starter, whatever. I just think they have enough. And some of their young pieces I like their young pieces more than I like the Angels' younger pieces. So that's why I give the Angels a slight edge here. But one thing I like is we know deGrom's injury history. I like Nathan Eovaldi to finish with more wins than Jacob deGrom on that staff.
Ooh, I like that bet, and I will tell you why. Because I have the Rangers finishing fourth, and the reason for that is I also think Jake deGrom will struggle. We know that deGrom has had issues with his health lately to that point. He hasn't quite looked like, not that he's been bad, he's still been like an all-star level player, but he hasn't been that same tip of the spear player that we always see. And I really think the Rangers need him to be, like the deGrom that the only thing he needed was like two runs a game and he'd win you like 20 games. I don't think they're going to have that. Like, I think they're going to have something similar to what deGrom was when he came back. And if the Rangers only have that to me is the fourth place team in this division. Because even though the Angels are bad at baseball, Alex, they have the two best field players. Like, I'm going to include Shohei Ohtani as a field player, even though he can pitch too. But because they have Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, I have them finishing third, the Angels. So let's dive into the Angels a little bit, Alex. The Angels have two of the best players in baseball, and they are horrid. They're an embarrassment. I actually would argue that they should be more embarrassed than any of the last place teams in baseball.
Oh, I agree. Oh, totally.
It's just like, it's ridiculous how much money they spend every year. It's ridiculous how much money they spend on those two players who are at the top. Like I said, top of the game. Like, you could pretty much survey any fan in baseball. They probably say if you ask them who's the best player, they'd probably say one of those two guys. And their team never makes the playoffs. I think to this day, Mike Trout has never actually played a playoff game, correct?
Nope, he's played one playoff series. He went 1 for 12.
Oh, right. Okay, cool. So he's only played one.
So he essentially hasn't played a playoff series. Yes, you're right, John.
Yeah. He's still yet to appear, but yeah, I'm hoping pretty soon though, because of how bad the Angels are, that Shohei Ohtani is going to demand a trade, and that is the only silver lining.
Well, he's a free agent after this year.
Well, I'm hoping he expedites the process. That's what I'm saying.
No, I hope the Angels suck, and I hope the Red Sox suck, and then Chaim Bloom gets fired, and John Henry pays Shohei Ohtani $50 million a year. That's what I want, John. We can talk about that a little bit later. But do we even want to bother with the Oakland Athletics
I
or
have one
the
thing.
soon to be Las Vegas Athletics?
I have one thing about the Las Vegas Athletics, Alex, which is whoever finishes as number one in WAR on the Athletics will get traded, as it has been the last like 3 or 4 seasons in a row. That is all.
Yeah. And Joe, we should take GNASS on the road to the Oakland Coliseum for
check it out one game. Yeah, we'll record live in the stadium.
We could record during the game and no one was. Alrighty. Moving on to the NL Central. I think this division has the most parity because I think most teams are like the upper echelon is like small G good with the Guardians, and the bottom, the Royals, they're like a 73 win team.
Yeah, that's true. Because I don't put like the Tigers into it, just because I think the Tigers are just fucking stupid and like they're gonna completely fall off. But yeah, I agree with you. Like this division, excuse me, has the most parity for sure. But Alex, who do you got winning the division? Because I have a feeling we're both gonna have someone different.
I have the Guardians. I just they have the best pitching rotation, and some of these young position players are starting to come along for Cleveland. So they have the best manager, even though we'll see how much longer Francona wants to keep doing this. But his teams always play for him, and I think as an in-game, his ability to call the game. And for the catcher, that the game plan that the catcher is calling, that they develop, I think the Guardians are one of the best teams at executing that night in, night out. And there's something to be said for that in Major League Baseball when it's easy for teams to lose focus for 2, 3, a week at a time, and maybe you lose 4 or 5 games. So I the Guardians, they find ways to avoid losing streaks. So I still like them. They're not the most talented team, but they always play the sum of the sum is always exceeds their parts. Is what I meant to say. So
No,
give me the Guardians.
I agree that the sum does exceed the parts of the Guardians. I love actually the scouting with the Guardians, the way they're able to constantly just replenish the system and bring in players now. And it's actually exceeded since Mark, like it started with Mark Shapiro, and it's actually continued since he left and joined the Blue Jays, which has been really impressive to watch, like from a team perspective. I actually have the Guardians finishing in third, though. I don't think that means that they have a losing record. I actually think that means they finished like close to the wild card, maybe even in that second wild card spot. But I think they drop off a little bit, and I actually think because of that, this might be the year that we finally see them separate with Shane Bieber, as we've seen them part ways with so many other big assets to kind of keep these cycles going of always being competitive. But like I said, like I still think they're going to be close to contention. I think like they'll be in that second, third place though, Alex. That's where I predict for the Guardians.
So who do you have winning it, John?
Ooh, for me, I think this is the year the White Sox finally step up and win. I already feel weird saying that because it's the White Sox, and I feel like there's some choky vibes of the White Sox these days. But led by Dylan Cease, like this is one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, like especially at the top end. If Lucas Giolito can just kind of come back and capture that form, that all-star form he had 2 seasons ago, like this is 1, 2, 3, like one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. And like I said, I think they have a young team. This is the year that they could finally step up, led by Tim Anderson at the top of the lineup. And, if that's the case, I think this is going to be a very close battle, but they win the division by like a couple games. And
so I like the White Sox, but I don't like them this year. And here's why. Tim Anderson, he's kind of a lightning rod, but he was giving interviews in spring training, essentially saying that, they didn't understand why they let Jose Abreu go. Jose Abreu was their locker room leader. And kind of like the Red Sox after David Ortiz retired, what was that, 2016? there was this leadership void on the team in 2017. Even though they went in, they went out and got Chris Sale that offseason. The team wasn't comfortable in its own shoes yet because they had this void that David Ortiz left. And Jose Abreu hasn't quite had the career that David Ortiz did. Maybe he would have if he got to play his whole career in Major League Baseball, but that's a different story. I think the White Sox are going to. I think they're going to struggle this year when you've had this team that was led by Abreu for all these years, and then he's just gone. But then maybe next year, I think maybe then they take that step forward. So I'm not as high as the White Sox as you are. But I think they could probably finish second, and then so yeah, that's where I'm at with the White Sox.
That's totally fair. Like I said, to me, it's just because 500 team last year. I get they lose Jose Abreu, but I feel like there's enough strides there with the young team, and I think, like I said, I think the pitching staff can.
And maybe they'll be looser now that LaRussa, old man LaRussa isn't running the show there. So
that too.
Yeah, because you can maybe have positive regression that way.
For part of the season, we did also have the White Sox as the team that hates their manager most. So that was part of the problem with them chugging along there. Alex, there is one other team that was stealing storylines this offseason in the not the NL, in the AL Central. That was the Minnesota Twins because of the Carlos Correa saga. Alex, how you feeling about the Twins this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it's not sloppy seconds, but what happens when you're third? And so if you're the Twins, I mean, you got the second best shortstop on the market. But what else did you do this offseason? Every year it seems like we're waiting on Byron Buxton to be the best player in baseball that he was projected to be when he was coming up. And I feel like he's either always gets hurt or, he hasn't quite lived up to all the hype. So what's his face? Joe Ryan had a really good rookie year as a starting pitcher, but his stuff doesn't really blow you away. He's more of just kind of a control guy. So I think the Twins should have probably done a little bit more this offseason if they're really serious about contending. So I don't know about Carlos Correa. It just seems like there's always something with him.
I completely agree. It's not just Correa either. One player you didn't mention was Luis Arias, the guy who was traded to Miami. The Marlins, who's traded the Marlins. That was another storyline that really just hung over this team and had really negative.
Yeah, he won the batting title.
Exactly. And it had really negative vibes in terms of the player reactions after he was traded. And I think there's something to be said when things like that happen, and Carlos Correa wanting out and him getting traded. To me, there's something going on there where the locker room is not exactly jiving. And for me, that's why I think they're going to be they have enough talent where they should be battling in this division with the other two teams that we the two aforementioned teams. But I'm kind of thinking the Guardians are going to edge them out just because of all of this potential turmoil, if you so to speak. Alex, the two more teams in this division, the Royals and the Tigers. We mentioned the Tigers are probably tanking. How are you feeling about the Royals?
Yeah, the Tigers, Riley Green is a prospect, or I mean, he came up last year. He's a guy that, the talent evaluators but they seem like they're kind of going nowhere fast at this point. They're still saddled with what's his face?
Cabrera.
Yeah, well, this is Cabrera's last year, but no, the shortstop they signed from the Mets.
Oh, Javier Baez.
Yeah, Baez. They're still saddled with his contract. And the Royals. The Royals are just in that 20-year rebuild. And I think they're at the very start of the climb up. So it's a long way to top for them. So I think these are kind of just two kind of nothing teams this year. Well, no, I guess this is a good segue to talking about the American League East, John, because my shitty Boston Red Sox, right out of the gate, they play the Tigers and Pirates early in their season. So if the Red Sox struggle against those teams, then it's look out below.
I think that the Red Sox are destined to finish in last place in this division, man.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt.
It is not looking good for the team that finished in last season. And even though they weren't the worst, division fifth place finisher, you lost Xander Bogaerts and all the other teams
Didn't
around
replace
you,
him.
like, yeah, exactly. And the other teams around you, like in terms of the Yankees and the Blue Jays, this is an arms race. So it's going to be a lot harder to win in this division. And yeah, I agree. I think the Red Sox finish in last. And the only thing I'm wondering, man, is how come you guys haven't caught up with some of the creative protesting that's going on in Liverpool?
Just wait till Fenway Park is half empty by the 4th of July, and then it'll get fun at Fenway Park. This fan base has been in long need of a purge, and so it's been glad Heim Bloom is force feeding us that enema this year. Let's talk about the teams in this division that are actually worth talking about, John. And so the pesky Rays, no one has been able to really knock them down from being, I guess, even a more successful version of the Oakland A's when the A's are humming along.
They're just
You
too
get the
good at
you get the
doing this
Yankees and you
whole
get the
cycle
Blue.
thing.
You
They're
get the
just too good at
Yankees, we
doing
get the
the
Blue
cycle.
Jays. Who do we like to win this division?
Ooh. So yeah, just a quick point. Yeah, the Rays are too good at doing the cycle thing. That's why they never drop off fully. But I actually think they might finish a little bit, or they're going to be in a tough battle with the Orioles. I think this year, to a degree, because I think the Orioles are on the rise. But I have the Blue Jays winning this division. I think the Blue Jays made
Shocker.
What's up?
Shocker.
I know, right? No, the Blue Jays should be top to bottom the best team in this division. They're young, they're hungry. They acquired left-handed bats, which thank Jesus, because that was one of the main needs. They acquired another experienced, solid starting pitcher in Chris Bassett. Like, this is a top to bottom team that's ready to contend. I was a little disappointed with the Teoscar Hernandez trade, but at the same time, now their bullpen is shored up. And like I said, they have everything. I just would prefer that they go in and get another starter just based on the whole situation, specifically at the bottom end of their rotation with Yusei Kikuchi, Hyunjin Ryu, and Berrios' inconsistencies towards the end of last season. But for me, I love the Blue Jays, man. And I think this is their division to lose. Alex, how are you feeling? Who wins this division between the Yankees and Blue Jays?
Well, John, as my hat would indicate, I'm also on the Blue Jays winning this division. And as you mentioned, I'm not sold on their pitching. I was a lot higher on the Blue Jays going into last year than this year. Yes, they got a little more balance in their lineup by bringing in the lefties. That's key. But this has been an organization that in my entire baseball watching life has always been short at least one starting pitcher.
Pretty much, yeah. That's
And
kind of their MO.
Chris Bassett, he's a good pickup. They had to do it. They needed to get another guy. And so I think while the Blue Jays, I think their offense will carry them to the division title. I think that pitching will ultimately, or the lack of starting pitching will ultimately be their Achilles heel.
I think the big thing that they're banking on, the Blue Jays, is Ricky Tiedemann's call up. And the problem with that, and I love Ricky Tiedemann, and I think he could potentially be the future of this team, like with Alek Manoah. Ricky Tiedemann's 19 years old. That's a tall order to ask a 19-year-old to come up and be like the left-handed starter on a World Series contending team.
Is he the kid that pitched at the World Baseball Classic?
No. That's that kid is the Canadian kid, you mean?
Yeah, we got shelled.
No, I forget what team he plays for, but he's not actually Jay's property. Ricky Tiedemann is so he didn't play at the World Baseball Classic. He's an American kid, but he's like a 6'4" lefty. He throws like consistently like 97, 98. And like he's one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball. And he basically could solve all the problems that the Jays have in terms of left-handed pitching.
That's a lot to put on a 19-year-old for a kid that
Exactly.
has World Series aspirations.
Exactly. Like we're talking about a team that's trying to win it all. So I personally would prefer it if they went out and got another more experienced player without trading Ricky Tiedemann. Can't stress that enough. Like, don't fucking trade the kid. but yeah, like it's I wouldn't bet everything on him, but I do there is a feeling in the organization, given how strong he's pitched in spring training, that left-handed pitching void could be filled by Tiedemann. Alex, let's quickly dive into the Yankees. How are you feeling about the team in New York this year?
They did what they had to do and signed Aaron Judge, but outside of that, it seemed like they didn't make any other big or significant moves.
No.
I think they're waiting on this crop of young players led by Anthony Volpe, who's, he's ranked higher than Marcelo Mayer in terms of, prospect status, and Mayer is like a top 10 guy. So I like him as a potential rookie of the year candidate, especially because he plays in New York. He's a New Jersey kid. Especially if he plays at shortstop, like the fix could be in, and they're going to talk about Volpe all year. And so, again, with the rookie of the year MVP stuff, you kind of have to handicap the voting field. Orioles, Rays, John, how do we feel about them this year?
Ooh, one quick thing on the Yankees before we move on though. Like, I do think the Yankees, like to your point, they did what they had to do, and it did feel when they did not make the move for like as a big when they didn't feel like a big player for the Juan Soto sweepstakes, it really did feel like they were making that move towards youth. For the Rays and Orioles, though, so I actually think the Rays, good team on the rise, led by Adley Rutschman, but I think that they're still going to struggle a bit. Like, I think they're still trying to bring players in, still trying to
Still a
figure
lot
out
of
who they are.
dysfunction in that,
Exactly.
in upper management. And then
Exactly.
with
And
the Angelos
despite
family.
having 100%, and despite having one of the best young players in baseball, by the way, quick thing, if you can take it to the bank at your local better, bet Adley Rutschman to lead all catchers in WAR. This kid's a fucking wizard, and despite like everything going on in Baltimore, he's one of the best players around, especially at the catcher position. Alex,
Absolutely.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our final thoughts on the MLB season and Degenerates Corner.
And way too early predictions.
And we're back. By the way, Alex, I had one bet on the Yankees. It was that no Yankee this season will hit 40 home runs. That's just a quick bet, though. Alex, we did forget the Rays. You want to quickly jump back?
Nah, fuck them.
All right, sick. Alex, we did mention our way too early predictions, so let's dive right into it. Who do you have in each playoff picture and your representative from that side? So let's start with the NL. Who do you have in the NL playoff picture?
So NL Central, we talked about them. We get the Cardinals winning it. I get the Padres winning the NL West. Braves with the the NL East. And my wild card teams would be Mets, Phillies, Dodgers, and we'll go in that order for now.
Okay, I'm gonna go 1 to 6. 1 to 3 are the division winners in that order. I'm gonna go Padres, Cardinals, Braves, Dodgers, Phillies, Mets, with the Mets narrowly edging out Arizona for that last wild card.
Really like them Diamondbacks, huh?
I really, something about young players, man. Even though they never win anything. Alex, who do you have? And I have the Cardinals winning the NL. Alex, who do you have in the AL playoff picture?
So the Astros winning the NL West. They're probably going to be the best team in baseball again this year. No small part thanks to that young pitching staff. I got the Blue Jays winning the AL East. That's the second most talented team on paper. Guardians winning the AL Central, and we'll have the Mariners with that top wild card spot. Yankees with the second wild card spot, and to round it out, give me the Rays. They'll find a way to back themselves into the final playoff spot.
Who do you have winning the AL, by the way?
Oh, yeah. So my picks for the World Series, we're going to go with an Astros-Padres World Series, John. How about you?
Ooh, so I'm for the AL just really quickly, 1 to 3 as same as the NL. Division winners, Astros, Blue Jays, White Sox, and then Yankees, Mariners, and Guardians rounding out the wild cards. I thought it'd be the Blue Jays representing the AL in this World Series. Obviously, that's a very homer pick. I agree, though. I think it's going to end up being the Astros because, dude, Evil Empire, I think they're just going to end up making another move that puts them just so far. Like, they're the team that makes moves to piss off all the other teams. And that's going to be the move that puts them over the top. So for me, it's going to be Astros and Cardinals in the World Series. That is what I have, my friend.
So yeah, and I said Padres, Astros. I'm picking the Padres over the Astros. I just think that I want to see a team be rewarded for just spending all of this stupid money and shoving it down the throats of everybody else. But I don't want it to be the Mets. And so therefore I want the Padres to be rewarded. And if the Padres make the World Series, take your boy Xander Bogaerts to win the World Series MVP. Very much a spite play. I have no other. When we get to Degenerate's Corner, I'll have another spite play. But yeah, I want the Padres to win the World Series, and mainly because I don't want the Red Sox to see have good behavior, or excuse me, bad behavior be rewarded.
For me, I'm gonna go the NL too. I think the Cardinals are gonna be the Astros in the World Series, and I'm gonna take Nolan Arenado to be the MVP. I do think the Cardinals, like a lot of these teams, like kind of also need another piece. I think for them being more pitching depth, just because that always seems to kind of be the vibe.
The Cardinals
them,
are like always there every 10 years, so
exactly.
we're getting close to that.
We're right in line with that. And for me, like I think it's the Cardinals. I think it'll be Nolan Arenado winning that MVP in the World Series. And like if you can't tell, I really like the Cardinals vibes this year. So that's where I'm at. Alex, I think it's time we did a little betting to your point. It's time for Degenerate's Corner.
Sometimes she goes, sometimes it does. She didn't go. That's the way she goes.
22 black, 22 black. Ass, son of a bitch.
Fucking way she goes, he said.
Oh no, why did I bet the company payroll? Oh, Gil's in a lot of trouble.
Can the boys beat the number? We'll find out on Degenerate's Corner.
That's the way she goes, buddy. Fucking way she goes.
Yes, a little special diamond themed Degenerates Corner.
Oof, there we go, buddy.
Do you want to do a quick look at last week though, John, before we turn the page?
I actually give me 1 second. I gotta check how I did last week. Please hold, please hold, please hold. I won. The Bruins beat the Minnesota Wild. So there we go, buddy.
Auburn and Houston did not stay under 132. The game actually was really really high scoring. So
it's for Houston.
It's a not March mustache madness for nothing. Hopefully you didn't tail me on that. Well, John, it is baseball season. Do you want to throw out a baseball best bet?
Ooh, my baseball best bet, folks, is Houston to win the AL West. Alex and I have talked about how this is one of the jokes divisions in all of baseball. The other one would be the Cardinals to win the NL Central, folks, but Houston to win the AL West, because to Alex's point, it's pretty hard to bet against them having a ridiculous record out in that division. And I'm going to take that because it is minus 190, folks. Alex, what about you for your best bet?
Awfully juicy.
Bet you yours is gonna be better.
Yeah, well, we talked about this a little bit. I've taken the Red Sox. I put this bet in a couple weeks ago, but I'm taking the Red Sox season win total under 77.5. I'm really freaking sick, and this is a spite play. I'm so goddamn sick of all the freaking Red Sox blogger fanboys telling me how they're like, this team's actually like this is gonna be a lot better team than last year. And maybe you were a last place team last year.
That's not a high bar, bud.
It's not a high bar to exceed. And I think there's so many health question marks, on the pitching staff of Corey Kluber. We don't know if Garrett Whitlock can be a starting pitcher, but we were going to shoehorn him in there because he's on a good contract. I don't think a lot of these question marks have been resolved, and you're going to be seeing a lot of openers, mix and matching out of the bullpen. And, oh, yeah, you replaced your second best player with Justin Turner,
who got injured already.
Yeah, it took a ball off the face. So, no, I just don't. I don't see it. So yeah, under 77 wins, under 77.5 wins for the Red Sox. I'm trying to get what that number is right now, if you'll bear with me. Of course, they're not offering that index right now. Here we go.
Would you lock it in at?
77.5 is my number, but maybe you can even get right now it's up to, you can get the same number under 78.5 wins at minus 105 for the Red Sox. So, I even like that even more. And I just might even double down, John.
You might have to, buddy. You might have to.
I might just double down. Yeah. So, do you have a long shot or parlay that you'd like to?
We're gonna go with long shot for this one. We know how voters love to vote for Los Angeles Angels to win the AL MVP, but we are going to take something different this year. For plus 800, we're gonna take J-Rod because I put my money where my mouth is. We love the Seattle Mariners on the show, friends of the show, and we're going with J-Rod to win AL MVP because it's a long shot. Alex, plus 800, I do like that money. Alex, what about you? What is your long shot for this season on the diamond?
Cincinnati Reds, fewest wins, plus 600.
Wait, what? That's it?
The Nationals, Rockies, and Athletics are shorter odds on the board to have the fewest wins.
Ooh, but I like the Reds for that at plus 600, man. That's a good one. That is a good one. Alex,
Especially if like someone like Hunter Green gets hurt.
I know, right? Alex, may the odds be in your favor, my friend.
Why, thanks, John. Same to you.
Thank you, sir.
And you know, of course, we want all our bets to win, but I don't think I've wanted a bet to hit more than my Red Sox under 77.5 wins. So check out the GNASS Substack. There'll be a complete guide to hate watching the Red Sox this year.
We'll dive into some baseball stories this week on the GNASS Substack, guys. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell wherever you can. Helps the algorithm. And like I said, thank you.